And I think people would be surprised how quickly those returns diminish. The training in the gym it's at a load where you almost don't even experience any soreness from the gym.
People like seeing like the CTL, the fatigue form and fitness, like in their face, but that's one of the reasons why I got away from it.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the latest episode of the Matchbox podcast. First question this week comes in from Kia. Kia says, "Hi Matchbox, hope you are well. I love your podcast and I would love advice for training for both a trail running and long distance ultra bike packing at the same time. I've signed up for a 30K trail race in November 2026, so that's this year, and I'm planning to enter a 1,300 kilometer bike packing race in February of 2027, so that'd be like almost a year from now. Do you have any advice to train in both disciplines simultaneously? The trail run is a B event and the bikepacking race is my A event. Please let me know if you need any further information," which we did not. Kia.
Doing our calculations here, 100K ends up being 800, just around 808 miles.
Okay.
That's big.
Yeah, big. And bikepacking, so I'm guessing it's not going to be at any blitzing speed, so I don't know. It's probably over a week, something like that.
Yeah, I would think so.
Around a week. What do you think, Dylan?
Well,
Can someone train for both of these at the same time?
Well, I mean, these two events are spread out by quite a lot of time. It's not like, I'm doing a bikepacking race 1 week and then 2 weeks later I'm doing this running race. How do I train for both of them? Like, there's a lot of time between these two events. Yeah. And I mean, all that time means that you can kind of train more specifically for one or the other, given which one's coming up first and then which one's coming up next. I mean, given that these are they're both endurance sports, but they're two different sports. If you completely ignored running in preparation for the bikepacking race, then, you'd have a lot of ground to make up when you started training for the trail running. But so I would probably not recommend that. I would do some sort of maintenance running, probably maybe once or twice a week until the bikepacking race is over, and then maybe you just do maintenance cycling once or twice a week.
Yeah,
in preparation for the running event.
Just to refresh, so the 30K trail run is going to be in November of this year, and then the bikepacking is in February of next year. So it's actually the running race first, which actually I think even further simplifies what you're getting at.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. They said that the running race is a B event. I mean, if running's not that important to you and you're just, you're mainly worried about your cycling ability, then, you could maybe do more of a 50-50 split between running and cycling leading into that running event, as opposed to having cycling just be a once a week or twice a week activity. And then
I disagree there.
All right.
I think I would prioritize the running while you can, just because you're more likely to get hurt if you don't train properly for that kind of a distance, and then you don't want to be dealing with a overuse injury on the other side of that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I just 50-50 split running and cycling, that is still quite a high volume of running.
Yeah,
I guess
depending on what their volume is.
Yeah,
it's probably I mean, but like relatively, runner, training for running requires less time than training for cycling. If you're doing a 50-50 split running and cycling, it's almost like effectively you're doing more running volume.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Even though the volume is the same.
Yeah. And the nice thing is the cycling fitness will very, very well complement anything on the run, but the running is going to be super demanding mechanically. Form, It's going to be really critical. Muscular efficiency, so the more time you spend running, the more efficient your body gets at outputting energy. Also, like things like nutrition is going to be super important for an 18-mile to / 30K run. It's a trail run too, so it's going to be slower than your average marathon type street road running race. So I think I think and I agree, Dylan, that splitting a 50-50 really leans more probably 65-35 in favor of demand and time spent running, in terms of how it's going to translate. So I mean, the nice thing though is a 30K trail run, even though that's a long running race, that's going to pale in comparison to doing an 800 mile or 1,350 kilometer bike packing race. So you can also get, they can periodize their training to be a little bit more focused on the running race, and that might include some speed work to work on that muscular efficiency, and kind of use that as a sort of your top end fitness. And then, like you mentioned, Dylan, once that running race is over, then you can really switch focus and get more specific in those final 3 months leading up to the bike packing race.
Yeah.
Which you won't really need any speed work for in the specificity of that.
I mean, I don't know how much this person wants us to get into like the nitty gritty details of what training for these specific events are, or if they were more so asking about like what should the ratios of running to cycling be leading into these two events.
Let's just get into some details. Okay. It's a little bit open-ended. They're just asking for advice on how to train for both. We touched on how we would, do you agree, Caitlin, roughly 50-50, making sure you're spending ample time in both? Because the thing you don't want to overlook too is the fact that an 800 mile or multi-day bike packing race is also going to be physically very demanding, just from a neuromuscular perspective too. It's a long time you're spending in the saddle. You got to prepare your body, your mind, your equipment. So you have to be like super intimately familiar with that before that long of a race too. So you don't want to skimp out on the cycling in preparation solely for the running race. And it sounds like the way that I interpret the fact that this is a B race, the only thing that I would really say there is maybe your periodization should lean more towards the bike packing demands, and then you kind of go into the B running race with whatever fitness profile you're at that point. But it shouldn't detract at all from your running volume. I think that's we all agree that that's pretty important. What about something like cross training? So mixing in some strength training or other modalities.
Strength training for sure.
Yeah, I'm always a proponent of strength training. So, doing, I would probably say twice a week strength training. If you want to make it cycling and running specific, then that's mostly lower body stuff, obviously. And I mean, usually what I tell people is you actually want it to be, you want a period of time where you can adapt to strength training, and that's probably a time when you're going to experience a lot of soreness. So your volume of running and cycling shouldn't necessarily be very high during that time. And this should be well out from your A event, probably 5 or 6 months out from your A event. And during this time, you're trying to increase strength as much as you can, and you're doing a low number of reps, high amount of weight. And I also never go crazy with the amount of sets in the gym either. There's some research indicating that the volume of lifting, there are diminishing returns in it for the number of sets you do in the gym. And I think people would be surprised how quickly those returns diminish. Meaning that, the more sets you do, at a certain point, you're just really making yourself more tired for almost no extra gain. And that point comes probably 5 to 8 sets in. It's really not a lot for any given muscle group. And then kind of once you get into actually, you're 4 months out, 3 months out, 2 months out, then you kind of want to get into more maintenance lifting, which is reduced sets, reduced weight. The training in the gym is at a load where you almost don't even experience any soreness from the gym. So the gym is adding some amount of training load, but it's a negligible amount, if that makes sense. And really,
that's always hard for people because it's easy to get in the mindset that you go to the gym, you don't feel like you get anything out of it. So that's why a lot of people end up just scrapping their gym workouts once they get into the season, because they're like, I'm not gaining anything. I don't feel any adaptations. But maintenance is way easier than coming back. So 20 minutes is going to be way more effective than losing all of that and having to restart every time, every season.
Yeah. I mean, a maintenance, a mid-season maintenance gym session will probably feel like a waste of time because you go there for, you probably spent as much time driving to the gym as you did at the gym.
Totally.
And then when you're at the gym, you leave the gym and you're like, I don't feel like I feel like I hardly did anything, and that is what you should feel like. But that, and you're like, was that a waste of time? Like, I don't even feel like I accomplished anything. It was not a waste of time because what you did is you maintained your strength. And then when you get back to lifting, there's not going to be this immense hurdle that you need to jump over, which is, getting your strength back.
I don't think your maintenance routine just needs to be a boiled down version of what your, strength phase was, so like if you were focused on squat and deadlift during your periodized session where you were like building strength, I don't think your maintenance needs to be the same thing, just less sets and reps. So I would say so you're not driving to the gym for a 20-minute session, invest in like a heavy kettlebell and a light kettlebell, or a heavy dumbbell and a light dumbbell, and do you can do different functional movements and still have it be a maintenance workout.
Totally. Yeah, like in your heavy lifting phase, you might need that full rack and full set of plates. Whereas in maintenance, a 50-pound dumbbell doing goblet squats could be perfectly effective. I agree with that. And that's a lot easier to keep in your schedule too and justify versus, like you said, Dylan, spending half an hour in the car for 30 to 40 minutes a week of total strength training. If you can buy yourself back that 30 to 60 minutes of drive time and get a couple different weights at home. Totally agree with that, Caitlin. What about, Caitlin, from your perspective, things like plyometrics or other agility and I don't want to say like flexibility. What's the term I'm thinking of?
Mobility.
Yeah, like any of that kind of work.
Super important, especially for the trail running, just because your body is not moving in a single plane as you typically would like for just a standard road race or road marathon. So typically that would fall after like you do your muscular endurance build, your general strength, your max strength, your power, and then your plyometric if you were following like a typical periodized strength plan. So that would happen like focusing on plyos, like your box jumps and things like that, closest to your event. But I think mixing it in throughout, just because it can be pretty demanding on the body. You don't want to, again, if you're mixing these things throughout, there's less likelihood of getting hurt doing it.
For sure. So, yeah. And those are nice because a lot of times you can do that literally in the park that you're trail running at. Find a picnic table, find something that you can step up to or jump up to. You can have a 5 or 10 minute routine. It doesn't take a lot, and it shouldn't be a lot because it is really demanding, but you can do that literally like as soon as you finish your run. Or some people do like in the middle of their run.
And a lot of the drills that runners are typically doing before their run are very similar to plyometrics.
Yep.
Like your A skips, B skips, all that. I think doing a little activation that includes mobility and some plyos before your run is a really good idea.
Yeah. One thing I want to touch on is I think the the most challenging aspect of training for two different disciplines simultaneously is that it doesn't leave a lot of room for anything else. So pretty much all of your training time should be in one way or another complementing either of these or both of these disciplines. So your aerobic conditioning, your strength training should be focused on either your running or your cycling performance. Plyometrics should be pretty running specific. It doesn't leave as much flexibility to do other activities that are kind of adjacent or non-direct impacting your performance here. So that is something to keep in mind. You do have to be very structured with your time. You do have to be very disciplined with your focus. But I think in terms of these two events, I think they totally complement each other just fine.
Agreed.
Cool. All right, let's move on to Charles from Chicago. Charles says, hey guys, my question is about the ideal time or unideal time to train. Busy dad, and sometimes I don't have time to get on the trainer until late at night after the kids are sleeping. I'm concerned that these late night trainings are counterproductive. I'm concerned I am not well recovered the next day because I end up getting less sleep or my night training is not well spaced out with my daytime training the following day. Would it be better to just rest instead of training late at night? Big fan of the show. Definitely my favorite triathlon podcast. That's hilarious.
Oh, no.
I mean, I know we've talked about this before, but I think it's always a good topic to bring up. Do either of you like late night training?
No. I will say I actually don't mind going to the gym late at night. And when I say late, I mean like 8 o'clock or something when I go to bed at 11.
Late.
It's pretty. Yeah,
you go
it's
to
pretty
bed
late.
at 11?
Yeah.
No.
Since when?
That's shocking.
Is it shocking? I don't.
Dude, I
mean,
thought you were like
Yeah.
a 9:30 kind of guy.
I mean, I go through phases in life.
Okay.
Right now it's like 11.
Wow.
Maybe 10:30. I don't know, 10:30 or 11. So like I'm ending my gym session like 2 to 2.5 hours before I go to bed. But I mean that's still late. But these are maintenance gym sessions. Like I leave the gym feeling like I barely did anything, right?
But then you should eat something after the gym, and then that affects recovery too, or your sleep.
I do eat something after the gym.
It's fine. I eat until I fall asleep.
Anyway, where was I going?
So talking about late night training.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to do like an interval session at 8 at night, yeah, not good. I mean, sometimes it's like unavoidable, or like there's not one single time in the day where you could get this session in, and that's the only time you can do it. And then I guess if the question is it better to not do it than to do it at 8 at night? I mean, I guess I'm leaning towards doing it late at night than just not doing it at all. But it's definitely a compromise there. I mean, that is the guy's question, right? Is it better to not do it at all or do it late at night?
Sort of, or is there an opportune time to do it? So let's throw this scenario out there, okay? So Charles here, it's Wednesday, ends up being a super busy day. It's supposed to be one of his 1 to 1.5 hour endurance maintenance days. Mm-hmm. And goes through the day, kids finally go to bed, and he's like, gosh, I still haven't done my workout yet. He knows that tomorrow is threshold day. Does he do an hour and a half on the trainer at 9 o'clock at night, knowing he's probably not going to go to sleep now until 11:30? Or does he skip that in lieu of preparing better for his threshold session the next day?
That is a good question. And I'm having a difficult
He doesn't say
time.
the frequency with which this happens, but he does say
sure
he just doesn't always have time until later at night. So I don't know if this is a weekly occurrence, but let's focus on that scenario. What would you do?
I was going to say, but I think that's what makes it more complicated is that it's not consistently late at night, so that you're giving your...
I want to get there.
Okay.
I want to get there. I want to push Charles to increase consistency. Let's just in that scenario.
I'm
stumped.
I think it depends. I think it depends on his goals and his priorities. Like if it's if he's trying to maximize his volume for an upcoming A event, I don't think I would skip it. But if
I think it's probably dependent on whether or not he's trying. It's a phase of his training where he's trying to maximize time on the bike, or whether it's a phase of his training where he's trying to maximize intensity. And in the base season, you could probably say, I'm gonna not skip this session because I want to maximize time on the bike. But if it's the build period, then you might say, I'm skipping this session so I'm fresher for intervals. I think that's my final answer.
All right, now Charles, let's talk about how we can avoid that scenario. So this is a common pitfall, I think, of what parenthood is. We definitely, as parents, always try to prioritize our kids over ourselves. I think any responsible parent out there is doing that. They schedule their day around their kids' routines. They prioritize their kids' dinner before their own dinner, and oftentimes that includes putting them to bed before they even get to prioritize any time for themselves. The time that you have for yourself, you laid it out here, is when they're asleep, though. If they're sleeping, that is your time. And I would argue, and I would try and push you, what's better for you? Is it better to, because I think it can go both ways. Is it better to consistently train at night, so you know that 8 o'clock at night that's going to be your time to train. And you do that consistently. So that way you can build some routine out of it and some predictability. Or is it better to wake up early and do that same thing? So you just flip it on its head. Get to bed early. They go to bed. You go to bed. Finish whatever chores you got to do. Get yourself prepped for the next day. Hit the bed and then get up early and do that. Either way, they're like, that is your time, definitely, that you can control. It's a lot easier. It's usually more guilt-free, uninterrupted than trying to fit that in during the day or in the evening when the kids are around and you've got other responsibilities. So I think it's a personal choice. I think, Charles, you got to make that decision for yourself. Is it better, more productive for you to stay up later and do these workouts, or to wake up early and do the workouts? But either way, that's time for you that you can control. So I just think building some routine out of that and having some expectation rather than letting it just fit into your day whenever it does. So you never get in this scenario of, well, it's 8 o'clock and I haven't done my workout yet. What do I do? I think those decisions need to be made well in advance. So you always know what to do. If that was planned, you're going to do it. If it's just randomly, you missed your window throughout the day and now you have to decide. I think in that scenario, if it wasn't planned in that way, and all of a sudden you're just faced with the decision, I think you probably do skip it, actually, in lieu of, okay, I've got this other thing scheduled tomorrow. He says that he's, got a daytime workout the next day. I don't know how he's fitting it in the next day versus today, but I think if you miss that window, I think that's on you. That's kind of a learning lesson. Better prioritize your time next time. But I think getting into a consistent routine where you always have like a early or late window for working out is the best way to control that, so that you're not having to make that decision in real time of whether or not to do the workout.
Yeah, I agree. I think if your work schedule allows and you don't have some crazy shift, if you can figure out how to get yourself up and roll out of bed and get on the bike by like 5 o'clock in the morning, like that might just be what you have to do. Because then you're not thinking about it throughout the rest of the day. There's less chance that you are going to miss it. Your cortisol is highest in the morning and it's supposed to lower as you get closer to bed. So, it is affecting your sleep when you do it at night and your recovery. So just kind of lean into that.
Yeah. I mean, I can attest that if you leave it for later in the day, you will be, and again, it's not scheduled, so it's kind of unexpected. You will be faced with that question and decision of like, do I really want to do this? Like, I'm tired, full day behind me. Like, I just want to go to bed. Like, that's going to be a harder decision to make than if you set your alarm for 4:30, you get up out of bed and you make that decision 15 minutes after you've already woken up. Like, by that point, you're already committed. You're probably going to do it. So I don't know, Charles, maybe that's something to try. Maybe you experiment with both. Maybe you give it 2 weeks where you do late night workouts, and then you give it 2 weeks where you do early morning workouts, and just see which one cooperated better, which one you could hold, more routine, and also see which one you perform better with. Some people can't perform and they can't do intervals in the morning. They just can't get themselves to wake up enough. I think if you practice it enough, you will be able to, but that is a challenge for people. So not everyone's a morning person. Anything else for Charles?
That's good.
Yeah.
All right. So last one here. Okay. This is from AJ from Montana. And Caitlin, this is specifically for you. Question for Caitlin. She mentioned doing some coaching on Vecta and using CP...
Critical power and W prime.
Okay. Critical power per watt prime. I'm curious how she has found the Vecta platform compared to Training Peaks from a coach's perspective, but also any feedback her athletes have given her. I'm also wondering if she's using FTP or critical power to prescribe workouts. If so, how? Are you still prescribing workouts ever off of FTP-based zones and just observing the changes in critical power? Thanks.
Yeah. Vecta's really cool. So, their model is based off of critical power, which honestly ends up being so similar to FTP. It theoretically should be a bit higher. If you were doing a proper hour-long FTP test, which like nobody is doing, then you would see that your CP is higher. But because most people end up doing the 20-minute test and taking 95% of that, they usually end up with an overinflated FTP. So it ends up like being very similar. The nice thing with Vecta is they do have adaptive training zones, again, based off that critical power. It's been really good. Like any algorithm, you can I had one athlete specifically who felt like he was, I don't want to throw him under the bus, he felt like he was in this negative feedback loop where But I just don't think the volume of training and the level of training we were getting in was enough. So he was seeing that his zones or his critical power was actually dropping, and therefore the respective zones were dropping. So as I would program workouts, those zones would be lower. So then you know, do you follow? So like,
Sure.
because the zones were lower, like it was
Like
just
he felt
kind
like he was under training.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that's one thing I've gotten, and maybe gotten like from 2 people. But
so with the adaptive zones, is that something that is algorithmic? That is a hard word to say.
Yep. Algorithm.
Driven by an algorithm, or is that something that
Yes.
you
Yes.
have input in?
You can go
Man, I can
based
say
off
it in
of
my
that.
head. I can't say it out loud.
Algorithmically?
See? There it is, yeah.
Algorithmically.
Yes, it is based off of an algorithm. Yeah, but you also have the option to set manual zones, which I have.
But
done
does it
before.
alert you or something? Like, does the coach have to approve it before it automatically updates their zones?
No.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah. What else? What other questions?
So in terms of,
do you have?
I think he mentions, are you still ever prescribing workouts based on FTP, and are FTP based zones, or are you strictly using the critical power zones?
Honestly,
Is there a lot of overlap?
So yeah,
Okay.
for sure. I mean, your zones are still a range, and that range is very close, if not the same, as what people would typically have uploaded to their training peaks for their FTP.
Is it still like a 6-zone model?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Dylan, have you experienced Victa at all?
You know, I have that written on my list of things to do. And
Dylan.
it hasn't, I haven't gotten to that part of the list yet.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I have here,
It has some really great features that I think coaches will really appreciate. I think they're always improving it, but athletes coming over from Training Peaks are like, they kind of miss they have their version of load and strain, but people like seeing like the CTL, the fatigue, form, and fitness, like in their face. But that's one of the reasons why I got away from it.
I am super curious about it, and eventually I will get to that part of my to-do list. That being said, I think people on this podcast have heard my stance on various training platforms. Like, some people really nerd out, and by the way, I'm not saying this is right or wrong or better or worse or anything. I'm just kind of, I guess, talking about my like personal outlook on it. Like, some people really nerd out about training platforms. Some people really nerd out about Training Peaks. Some people really nerd out about Exert. You know, you can list them off and like all the features they have. I'm really not that guy, and maybe that's surprising because I nerd out about a lot of things. I don't nerd out about training platforms. I just see them as a tool to, you know, record your training. What I nerd out about is the science of proper training. And if a training platform helps you do that, then I'm all for it. But I'm not one of these people that's getting into like the nitty gritty details of every single training platform and what they do have and what they don't have in this feature and that feature.
So I think this will be a good marker for where you're at. For your own training analysis, do you use WKO5?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Moving on.
Yep.
Because I think that's important. I mean, there are athletes out there that are coached that they're using WKO for themselves still, even though they've got a coach, or individuals that don't have a coach and they you know, in place of the coach, they use deeper analysis.
Yeah.
But I think, people that tune into you, they would probably assume that you are analyzing every millisecond of your training sessions to see what your power is related to what it was supposed to be, what your heart rate, like analyzing everything. And I know that that's not the case. I knew what the answer was going to be, but
I mean, I have used WKO, but I haven't used it in probably 3 years.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think Vecta has some great charts that I never really used WKO5, but yeah, I think Vecta is a much simpler version of that. And when people bring up Vecta, they bring it up as FTP versus critical power, but they're missing like one of the best parts, and it's the W prime. And that's a metric that is in your face on there, and that's telling you how much work you can do above your threshold, which I think is really important, especially in race scenarios. So I just want to make sure I put that out there.
Cool. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week. Thanks, guys. Catch you next one.
Sweet.
See.